On the night of May 21, 2026, the bustling Ben Thanh district in Ho Chi Minh City was shattered by the sound of gunfire. Lorenzo Lemalu, a 24-year-old man and a prominent leader of the rising Coconut Cartel gang in Australia, collapsed in a pool of blood near the entrance of a local restaurant. The gang-style execution not only sent shockwaves across Vietnam, but also immediately placed Sydney Metropolitan Police on high alert over fears that a brutal cycle of retaliation could erupt. In less than 72 hours, Vietnam security forces cast a wide net across border routes, cutting off the escape of the two professional hitmen as they attempted to hide in the remote border region of Tay Ninh. The rise of Coconut Cartel and the death of Lorenzo Lemalu were not random events. They were the direct result of a breakdown in the underground power structure across Western Sydney. For years, the area had been heavily influenced by Middle Eastern crime organizations that controlled large-scale drug trafficking operations and illegal tobacco distribution networks worth hundreds of millions of dollars. In Australia, especially in Sydney, the gangster world had evolved far beyond small street gangs. It had grown into organized criminal networks operating in the shadows while directly affecting public life. From drug trafficking and money laundering to weapons smuggling and daytime shootings, parts of Western Sydney had become flashpoints for prolonged gang conflicts. Within that landscape, the Alameddine name emerged as one of the criminal networks that attracted intense attention from Australian law enforcement. The organization, led by Alameddine, controlled a major share of drug distribution operations, with estimated profits reportedly reaching $1 million Australian dollars per week during its peak years. The group was believed to have deep roots in Marylands, Guildford, and South Granville, operating through a structure built around family ties, allies, and lower-ranking associates. Multiple members and associates had been accused of offenses linked to drug trafficking, weapons possession, money laundering, financial fraud, and organized violence. One of the most notable operations investigated by New South Wales Police involved a so-called dial-a-dealer system, a phone-based drug network where customers allegedly placed orders for cocaine and other illegal substances through numbers controlled by the group. In 2022, police launched a major operation, raiding dozens of locations across Sydney. Authorities arrested multiple people and seized drugs, cash, firearms, luxury vehicles, watches, and jewelry, highlighting the enormous financial scale behind the network. But what made Alameddine a feared name in Australia's underworld was not drugs alone. It was also a violent conflict with the rival Hamzy family, a branch connected to the brothers' for-life gang. Between 2020 and 2022, both sides were linked to a series of bloody confrontations in a battle for dominance. The feud triggered multiple shootings, ambushes, and targeted killings, leaving several people dead within a relatively short period. While many allegations still required proof in court, the Alameddine name had become symbolic of one of Sydney's darkest periods, where drug money, family loyalty, and personal vendettas transformed ordinary streets into battlegrounds for the criminal underworld. However, stability within the Alameddine network began to weaken in late 2025 and early 2026 as former associates started breaking away. In 2025, growing dissatisfaction spread among younger members connected to the Alameddine-linked criminal network. Believing they were being exploited and denied opportunities to move up within the old family-controlled structure, a group of younger gunmen, led by Lorenzo Lemalu and Isiah Ziggy Utai, broke away. They formed a new alliance known as Coconut Cartel. The split fueled fierce competition over drug distribution territory, leading Coconut Cartel to align with other groups, including lone wolves, in a direct challenge to Alameddine influence. The hostility between the two factions expanded beyond traditional drug trafficking operations and increasingly spilled onto the streets through direct violence. Coconut Cartel reportedly used highly aggressive intimidation tactics, including uploading videos of arson attacks to social media to project power and intimidate rivals. The emergence of Coconut Cartel was seen as an unforgivable betrayal under the strict code of silence surrounding the Alameddine network. A battle over territory and personal revenge rapidly escalated across Sydney streets. Investigators also noted a major shift in gang operations through the rise of so-called crime-for-hire methods. Specialized crime investigators reported that underworld figures were increasingly using shopping lists on the dark web to recruit teenagers for violent assignments. These so-called mules were reportedly paid around 6,000 Australian dollars to carry out vehicle arson attacks or rapid drive-by shootings, allowing senior criminal figures to distance themselves from direct legal exposure. Before the purge spilled onto Vietnamese soil, Sydney's streets had already witnessed an unprecedented escalation of violence, with gunmen on both sides growing increasingly reckless. In the early hours of February 13, 2026, an armed kidnapping crew stormed a home in North Ryde and abducted 85-year-old Chris Bagsarian. The group demanded a massive ransom of $50 million. Investigators later discovered, however, that the kidnappers had targeted the wrong address. Police believe the intended target was a relative of Dmitry Stepanyan, founder of the fashion label Proper Streetwear, who was known to have close ties to the Alameddine network. The incident exposed both the carelessness and extreme brutality of emerging criminal groups. Just 4 days after the botched kidnapping, another shocking attack unfolded in Greenacre, southwest Sydney. Matt Utai, 44, a former rugby league star who won the NRL championship in 2004, was ambushed by a gunman and shot multiple times as he stepped outside his home to leave for work at 6 in the morning. He suffered serious wounds to his shoulder and leg but survived after emergency surgery. Police determined that Matt Utai was completely uninvolved. The real target was his son, Isaiah Ziggy Utai, who had defected to Coconut Cartel and was believed to be hiding overseas. Following the attempted killing of Matt Utai, Sydney's underworld saw a wave of retaliatory attacks unfold within just 24 hours at 12:45 a.m. On February 18th, a home in St. Clair belonging to relatives connected to the Utai family came under heavy gunfire. A woman in her 50s inside the house narrowly escaped death. Video footage recorded by the attackers, accompanied by messages challenging Coconut Cartel, quickly spread across social media. Later that same day, a home believed to belong to Isaiah Utai in Guildford West was destroyed in a firebomb attack, along with a vehicle. Alai Ahio, a 28-year-old man linked to Coconut Cartel along with 4 others, was ambushed by 2 masked gunmen who opened fire inside a family garage. Ahio died shortly after being taken to the hospital. Realizing he had become a marked man following a series of bloody clashes in Sydney, Lorenzo Lemalu and several close associates decided to leave Australia. Lemalu chose Vietnam as a temporary refuge, believing the strict legal system of the Southeast Asian nation could shield him from those hunting him down. He underestimated how far his enemies were willing to go. On Thursday night, May 21, 2026, Lorenzo Lemalu arrived with a group of friends in Ben Thanh Ward, one of Ho Chi Minh City's busiest entertainment and dining districts. As he stepped outside an upscale restaurant, 2 figures quietly approached from behind. Without warning, gunfire erupted. Lorenzo Lemalu was struck multiple times at close range. In a final attempt to survive, he turned and ran back toward the restaurant entrance looking for cover. But his injuries were too severe. He collapsed onto the floor and died at the scene. As employees and diners watched in shock, another man who had been with Lemalu's group was also shot and rushed to the hospital in critical condition. The crime scene was quickly sealed off by Ho Chi Minh City police and security forces. A gang-style execution involving military-grade weapons in the center of the city immediately pushed Vietnamese authorities into a heightened state of alert. After carrying out the attack, the 2 gunmen allegedly disposed of the weapons and took a public taxi away from the area in an effort to erase their tracks. Using investigative techniques and analysis of the city's surveillance camera system, Ho Chi Minh City Police, working alongside the Ministry of Public Security, quickly identified 2 highly dangerous suspects from Samoa, Va, 27, who allegedly carried out the shooting, and his alleged accomplice, Tafia Steve, 23. After determining the suspects were attempting to move toward Tây Ninh province and cross illegally into Cambodia, investigators launched an immediate pursuit. The taxi driver who transported the two men told authorities he dropped them off near Ko Rap Mart Trang Bang in Trang Bang Ward, Tay Ninh Province, after receiving coordination requests. Tay Ninh Provincial Police and Border Forces established checkpoints on the afternoon of May 22, 2026, while urgent alerts were distributed throughout border communities. Authorities warned residents not to approach the suspects under any circumstances due to the high-risk nature of the situation. Despite attempts to hide in remote areas and seek illegal border crossings, investigators gradually boxed them in through an extensive security operation. On May 25, 2026, specialized units from the Ministry of Public Security, working alongside Ho Chi Minh City Police and Tay Ninh Provincial Police, moved in simultaneously, surrounded, subdued, and successfully arrested both suspects while they were hiding near the border area. During initial questioning by investigators, both suspects allegedly admitted to their involvement and stated that the attack had been carried out under instructions from an individual based overseas. The two men entered Ho Chi Minh City through Tan Son Nhat Airport on May 14th. Investigators said they then monitored the victims' routines and movements. On the night of May 21st, after the victims' group had finished dinner at CEF restaurant, the two suspects allegedly carried out the attack using 3 gunshots. After the shooting, the suspects returned to their rented residence in Thu Duc to gather their belongings before attempting to flee. Police arrested both men while they were hiding near the Vietnam-Cambodia border less than 72 hours later. Because the two suspects had only been arrested on May 25, 2026, investigators were still conducting interviews and strengthening the case file while coordinating with Australia's Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade under legal procedures. Police in both countries are now focusing on 2 major theories surrounding the May 21st attack. One possibility is a cross-border murder-for-hire operation, in which Va Va and Tafia Steve were allegedly hired directly by leaders of the Alameddine network in Sydney for a large sum of money to travel to Vietnam and carry out the hit on Lorenzo Lemalu. The second theory centered on a profit-sharing dispute overseas. Lorenzo Lemalu may have come into direct conflict with criminal associates while establishing a new drug trafficking route from Southeast Asia to Australia, potentially leading to his killing. Under Vietnamese criminal law, organized homicide involving military-grade weapons and conduct considered especially serious under the law may carry the highest possible penalty. Investigators were also continuing efforts to determine where the firearm used in the attack came from. The killing of Lorenzo Lemalu sent shockwaves through both Sydney and Ho Chi Minh City. The death of a young figure like Lemalu did not ease tensions between the rival groups. Instead, it pushed Australian police into a heightened state of alert over fears of further violent retaliation. In New South Wales, the killing of a key Coconut Cartel figure overseas highlighted both the reach and the escalating brutality of the gang conflict. Sydney police immediately increased patrols across sensitive areas in the city's western suburbs while closely monitoring remaining members of Coconut Cartel and the Alameddine network in an effort to prevent potential retaliatory shootings. Across social media platforms and news discussions in Vietnam, the case quickly became a major topic of public attention, drawing millions of interactions. Online commentators and security experts largely shared the same view, that the two Samoan hitmen had made an extremely reckless mistake by choosing Vietnam as the place to carry out the attack. Vietnam does not have a culture of widespread firearm access, and any shooting incident typically triggers an extensive investigation backed by maximum law enforcement resources. In addition, attempts by foreign suspects to hide in a smaller border province like Tay Ninh faced enormous challenges against Vietnam's tightly coordinated public security network. The rapid capture of the two hitmen within just 72 hours once again reinforced Vietnam's standing as one of the world's safest countries and one with one of the highest criminal case clearance rates globally. However, Lorenzo Lemalu's death in Vietnam also raised deeper concerns about the increasingly transnational nature of organized crime linked to Australia. The possibility that Australian criminal figures may view Southeast Asian countries as places to hide or settle violent rivalries, highlights growing concerns that parts of the region could become secondary battlegrounds for international criminal conflicts. The case also underscored the need for closer investigative coordination and intelligence sharing between Australian and Vietnamese authorities to identify and disrupt similar acts of violence before they cross borders again.